Hey everyone, it is Sunshine right back here again. I'm recording this a little bit earlier than normal because I will be at a expo all this weekend. Today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what it means to be powerless over alcohol. So, step one in a 12-step recovery program is admitting that you're powerless, right? Even in the rewrite of the 12 steps that I created for a sober witch, it's still admitting that you're powerless over alcohol, right? Or, I've had a lot of folks ask me recently, could they, work with me if they were experiencing, a relationship with another addiction? And absolutely you can. The first step in any addiction, though, is admitting that you no longer have power over, like admitting that it's gotten the better of you, right? That our life has become unmanageable because of it. And I've sat around at a lot of the tables. My first, almost 6 months within sobriety was, leveraging and using AA in the 12-step program. And I've talked to a lot of those folks, and I've listened to so many first step stories, like these stories of what life is really like prior to making that admittance. Right. I've also talked to a lot of people that show signs of addiction, but aren't even ready to admit it. Maybe it's they're not ready to admit it to others. Maybe they're not ready to admit it to themselves, like whatever that may be. I've even had a partner in my past tell me that they were ready to admit to it, yes, and agree to abstain, and then continue to hide the use of addictive substances behind my back, alcohol included, right? This statement can even be controversial in some circles. So I belong to a number of different Facebook groups that talk about sobriety and things of that nature. And sometimes this can really rile people up because there is this kind of controversy of turning this over to something else, like this admittance piece. Um, so we're going to talk a little bit about that because admitting that you're powerless looks different for every single person, right? It looks different for every single person. For me, it included, I didn't have the ability to stop drinking after one drink. I wanted another and another, and very often another and another and another until it was time to go to bed, right? Um, and that meant I often drank in excess. At the peak of my addiction, I was probably able to consume. Gosh, I don't even know. I mean, I remember once upon a time bragging of being able to almost finish a case of beer when I was my early 20s, but um, in a matter of, I think we were drinking for like maybe 7 or 8 hours, like probably started, I think, around dinner time and, went well into the middle of the night. So it also, for me, it included drinking in excess. It included glamorizing the drinking lifestyle, like, you know, um, hooting and hollering about it, sharing a lot on social media about it, trying to make sure that all my friends were kind of like in that kind of vibe of drinking, partying, living loose, and all that kind of stuff. I was trying to find ways to include alcohol in pretty much anything. And if that was like, I knew I was going to go to an event or something, it may just be a matter of me having a drink on the way or, waiting until afterwards. But like, I spent a lot of time thinking about drinking, it was wild. Um, and I'm not going to lie to your friends, it included monitoring and even trying at some point to moderate, right? So, oh, I'm only going to drink beer. Oh, I'm only going to drink wine. Oh, I won't do hard liquor. I'll only do a shot. Like all of these various different things. I mean, a lot, a lot. And this is where this is where that statement to me of powerless came from. Like, I didn't realize how much time and energy I spent thinking and revolving my life around alcohol and drinking. And so for you, maybe your addiction isn't alcohol. Maybe it is something a little bit harder. Maybe maybe you're, unfortunately, struggling with opioid abuse. Maybe you're struggling with some kind of barbiturate type of, abuse. Maybe it's gambling. Maybe it's food. Maybe it's sex. Maybe it's just chaos and drama. I can't tell you how many folks I've talked to in the course of the last couple of years that, they're like, oh, I don't really drink or I don't have a substance, but yet they were the gossiper, the dramas, the victimers, like they were totally addicted to this whole chaotic energy that often comes with substance abuse. Yeah, I've talked to a lot of folks, a lot of folks, and it doesn't matter what it is that's robbing you from the joy that you really deserve in life. But it does take us to admit that there's a problem in the first place, right? Why am I sharing all this with you? Right? Simply put, alcoholism and an unhealthy relationship with alcohol doesn't look like it does in the movies, my dear friends, right? There doesn't need to be homelessness. There doesn't need to be sickliness, right? There doesn't need to be begging on the street corner just to get, enough money to cover a half pint or a 40. There doesn't need to be physical or abuse or violence involved in it. It can look like um, mom wine Wednesdays. It can look like champagne toasts at a wedding. It can look like you know a one beer that you only have at the end of every day, right? It doesn't need to look like what it looks like in the movies. So you may be realizing, my dear friend, that you are powerless, right? Or you may be fighting that, and that's okay, right? The biggest thing that I've shared with a lot of individuals, especially those that are teetering on that sober, curious kind of lifestyle, is that to me, it wasn't an overnight decision. Like there was almost 2 whole years. It was around 2017 where I started to think about my relationship with alcohol, right? Just think about it. Wondering, was it okay? Was it healthy? And a big prompt of that was my father on his deathbed. He drank himself to the point that his heart was no longer functioning. His liver and his kidneys were shutting down. His body was basically destroyed because of his alcohol intake, right? And that's not even how, that's not how it started. That's how it ended. After 55 something years of drinking, he was diagnosed um, and told that his heart was, not functioning as well. And then still continued a couple number more years until the point that he was dying, and it doesn't need to look like what it does in the movie. You just have to admit, and I don't care if it's alcohol, drugs, sex, chaos, violence, drama, shopping, gambling, whatever it is, you just have to admit. That's the first step, is just admitting and saying, hey, man, something's not right. My life is not what I want it to be. My life is not the life that I dreamed that I would be living, right? And I think I think that's the biggest thing. So how might this be showing up for you? I want to be very clear. I mentioned in the last podcast, if you haven't heard of it, I mentioned this concept of a dry drunk. This is an individual that may have given up what it is, right? The alcohol, the gambling, the sex, the narcotics, whatever it may be, right? This is an individual that may have given up the substance that was, bringing them down, like dragging them down, but they have not done the deep inner work, that shadow work that us witches know is so potent and powerful. They haven't done it, and therefore they haven't released themselves from a lot of the depressive symptoms and behavioral patterns that addicts have. So, my dear witches, I'm going to share a couple of those things with you. And I'm going to keep talking about them. I'm definitely going to talk more about that, right? And so this can be literally continuing to remain that is not bringing you joy. Maybe this is a career, maybe this is a relationship, maybe this is a volunteer position, maybe this is what you do, with your children after whatever it may be, but continuing to go back day after day excuse me, into the same situation that is not bringing you happiness and joy. Another sign can be, continuing to not pay attention to your financial situation. Right. This is one that I do struggle with every now and again, right? I have a habit of trying to, and it's long standing since I was a child, where like little gifts and things of that nature would release those dopamine releases. So I'm constantly in this one, right? I admit So I'm constantly kind of in this recovery state around, not being this shopaholic even that is, buying these little gifts and trinkets and things of that nature in order to just make myself feel better, right? So I'm very conscious of that particular piece. Um, if you find yourself constantly walking away from a relationship and then back into it, that's another sign. I have a number of friends that I've watched this for, and I've called them out on it, and they admit it, and they admit that it's hard, right? They admit that it's hard to walk away from it. So that's another sign. You may literally be burning yourself out and never doing anything about it, right? Physically, emotionally, right? Ending up like completely exhausted or constantly finding yourself overwhelmed in these state of tears, right? I'm in this point of burnout right now. And thankfully I'm recognizing it and I'm giving myself a lot of time and space because tears, they're a lot. And I'm almost 5 years into recovery, my dear friends. When I say that you're like kind of that quote unquote dry, drunk, so to speak, it's because you're not paying attention and not doing the things that you need to do when you're noticing or recognizing that these situations are happening. Right. And I apologize because I had an alarm set earlier and I had my phone volume on. And the last but not least, so many individuals that I have talked to have stated that they have lost their way on their spiritual path. They aren't connecting like they want to. And as a witch, this is really important, right? It's really important that we're continuing to involve our magic, our rituals, our practices in our daily life. It's really important in order for us to remain on that road to recovery. So yeah, my dear friends, it's important if this is resonating with you. Don't think that I'm expecting you to go proclaim right here and now, yes, you have a problem, yes, you need help or anything of that nature. Maybe you're at that point and that's amazing and wonderful and beautiful, and please feel free to reach out. But if not, just know thinking about it, right, takes you a step closer to admitting. All right, my dear friends, until the next time, much love from me to you.